Well, hello everybody, and welcome to TFT. Oh, it is Sunday night, and so happy to have you guys in here with us. Of course, here on Tinfoil Talk today, we're going to be covering cults. Quite the topic, and I'm kind of curious to see where we're going to end up with that. But of course, first thing I always want to do is mention the links down below. Please check those out. Also, hit that share button and let everybody know we're on, so they can come over and join us. We know that YouTube isn't really great about making notifications timely, particularly if you're not important, which most YouTubers aren't. But that's YouTube. But nevertheless, we're going to have ourselves some fun today. Also, I would be remiss if I did not mention to please hit that subscriber button in Twitter as well. Not Twitter. I don't want to. You could do the Twitter thing too. What was that button? Oh, the like button. That one. You hit that one. And if you want to be on the show, hit the Twitter button and they come and tell me you want to be on one of these shows because we'd love to have you. Whether you want to talk about comic books, movies, or some TFT type of topic, we'd love to have you. But nevertheless, let's come over here and say hello to our panelist we have today. Shockingly, even though he doesn't show up a lot, we actually have Booster here today. How are you doing, dude?
It's Booster. I made it today. I feel great, Chester. And before we talk about cults, could I interest anyone in a membership to join the Booster Boys? Right?
Mhm.
Because basically we have 12 commandments, right? And you got to oil up, you got to wrestle me, and you have to call me pretty every now and then, okay? We have other commandments as well. I'm not going to list them. It's a low entry of $200 per week.
Uh,
And you give me the money, and I promise not to yell at you as long as you don't leave or question me.
there you go. Well, now that was a very succinct way to describe the mechanics of cults. That's very nice.
Mhm.
Good job. Very, very clever. Very clever.
Look at that! Look
Uh,
how I did that!
look how
Wow, it was smooth transition.
it was a smooth transition. It was a good job.
Wow.
And of course, guys, we're also joined by the lightning himself, embodied on earth for all of us to bask in his glory, Thundero.
That's right. You know when you introduce me every time, I raise my hands up to the heavens to bless them with my presence. Every time
Mm,
it happens.
raise the roof, baby.
Every
God.
single time.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I like that one. That was a good one. Yeah, I felt that one myself a little bit. But how you doing, dude?
I'm better now. I got my house back together. The real windy around here the last couple days. Blew some siding down, but I'm good. Other than that, I'm good.
Oh, all right. Yeah. We had a little bit of that here, I think, yesterday or the day before. One little town got hit and a whole bunch of siding and stuff came off. Yeah, those little windy gust things can be pretty rough, particularly with this modern siding and stuff we do, which don't seem to be very robust, I guess we could use the word. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad your house is okay, though. That's nice.
Oh yeah, it's okay. I'm probably gonna need some roof work this spring, but it can wait till then. Should be all right.
Roof work. That's one of those jobs I never cared for much.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's not really the walking on the side at an angle thing. That didn't bother me so much. It's just the damn heat, man.
Yeah.
It's one of those really hot, sweaty jobs, man. But
Yeah, it's very physical, especially when you have My house is only one story, but it's tall. Like it
yeah,
sits like 5 feet up before you can even get into it.
yeah.
So pretty tall. So I have to lug everything up there. It's a pain.
Well, the actually I was pretty lucky with that. I've done all kind of little jobs and stuff in my life, of course, and but the company I worked for when I did roofing, because I just kind of got pulled in. I was
Is
actually
roofing a cult?
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
But I was working doing interior actually, but they needed help, so I ended up I was an apprentice type, so I got pulled up on the roof, of course. And but I was real lucky though. They had one of those interesting machines where they took a ladder, a very long ladder, put it in an angle. They had this little motor, and it would basically pull all the siding up and down, so you didn't have to climb up ladders with it. So that was pretty nice actually.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be nice.
yeah.
It's very clever.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I don't know if it was clever or was something they purchased, but either way, it certainly made life easier. But we're not here to talk about roofing or tiling or any of those other kind of asbestos-based things.
We're
Um,
talking about other cults.
we are, we are. So we might as well jump right into it. But let me go over and check out who's come and joined us today, and say hello to the chat. Hello, chat. Oh, there's a bunch of people in here. Very nice. We got Roger Heller. Always happy to see you, D, today. And he says, right on, sex cults. Now, of course, Booster will be covering all the sex cult stuff. That is
All of them.
his
Oh man.
expertise. Yeah. But
Join the Booster Boys.
actually, I'm going to
Top
cover
sex cult.
the toxic cult of the Booster Boys. But I'm actually going to cover today why sex is such a big part of, whether it's a abundance of or lack of sex. It is a big part of cults today, and I think it's an
That is.
important
I'd
aspect
be
of it.
very interested in that. Yeah.
All right, rock on. Nick C says something. Kristen Kruk recruited Allison Mack. Let that sit in, folks. Yeah, no, we talked about that here, Nick, and it's pretty sad because they can have Allison Mack, but they can't have Kristen. Damn it.
Chester and his Asian love. He can't get away from it. It's in him. It's ingrained into his DNA, I think.
Yep. Yep, I like me some Asian girls. I just had a real pretty Asian girl walk in here right now, and she's on the
Oh.
phone. She's ignoring me,
Oh.
but
No.
it's okay. We got Dave in here. He says very topical. Jennifer says, "Hey, how you doing, Jennifer? Nice to see you." Curious 2A says, "TFT baby, yeah, that's right." The middle says,
TFT, baby.
"Ahoy there, hi, hail Raven, hail Raven,
Ahoy,
indeed."
hoy.
Ahoy hoy.
Speaking of cults, Cult of Raven has come
Right,
in.
right, right. Rodwell Stevens says hi. Curious says, "Oh no, thanks, Booster." Is CG a cult? Yeah, I went there. Nick says, "Well, we're going to cover that today." And there's
I don't know if it's a cult, but it certainly has cult-like elements, and it's a dangerous risk if it keeps going the way it's going.
Yeah, well,
I don't know about a full-blown cult.
well, I think there's a difference between words like cult, sect,
Yeah.
and cultism. I think
Yeah.
there's a bit of a difference, and we'll discuss that today. We'll see. Joshua says, "Hey, Joshua. So should I make Booster pay me for him to get into the Cult of Raven Discord? I think you should. I think you absolutely should.
Oh,
Yeah,
bastard, Chester.
free Booster. Let him in the Discord. All right, there we go. Eagle
Good
43.
bullying there.
Hey, what's up, dude? Do we have to let Booster in the Discord? No, you don't. You certainly don't. We have
Chester's not helping my case.
No, I'm not. Kayvon says, "What about bread cults?" Well, we can get into that if you'd like. The metal says, "I'm campaigning for you, Booster. Don't worry. All right." Hey, PS Melter. I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing, dude? I know about a cult that is about meetings behind a Little Caesars. I think that's homosexual prostitution.
No comments.
Model 3 says, "I was in a cult. It suffered from having a bad leader." That's usually the case. And I did send you a link, Model, if you want to jump in. I don't know if you're busy today or not.
You could come join our cult. Yeah.
Well, Model's a really good, really good debater. I think he's good at that kind of
Ooh,
stuff.
he's a master debater,
Yeah,
even.
he is a master debater. See, I knew that would take like half a second. So Eric Hawkins says, "Hey, we get let's see who else we got in here. I already saw it. Dave says, I hope the spaceships come soon." That's an interesting phenomenon I want to get into as well. You guys are all on it. Awesome. So let's go ahead and start talking about it because there are some very interesting themes that continuously come up with cults. And we're going to get into that today. So let me go over here and share with these guys so they can see what I'm showing you, and then we'll get right into it, man. That's an interesting topic. We've had a couple interesting topics in a row here, so it's always good. All right, so here we go. All right, you ready? I'm ready.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm excited.
All right, cults. Ooh, you saw that little pinwheel thing? Chester found a new toy. Uh-oh, you're all in trouble.
Oh no.
Yeah. But now cults are a kind of interesting thing, and we're going to try to dissect what modern man really means by the word cult, because the word cult is actually coming out of the Latin word cultus, which simply means to adore. That's it. To love, to like, right? And of course, but modern use of cult is very specific to a religious thing. But then again, the word cult is used in many ways. We have, of course, the cult of personality, which can be either good or bad. I mean, something like, and you have some people will cross that line, like say a Malcolm X, right? He's a cult of personality as well as being a cult leader. But these words, I think, are very interesting, and we should delve into them. But usually, with at least the modern use of the word term, we have to understand that cults, of course, have cult leaders, and here are some famous ones that you probably recognize many of them. The interesting thing a lot of people don't understand about cults is the fact that there are thousands of them around you. They're not a little thing with a handful of them. There are thousands of them. Not only, I'm not talking worldwide. I'm talking about in your country, right? Cults are an interesting phenomenon. Now, usually, if you listen to a psychologist, and it's a strange thing. You guys know, when I was at university, I studied anthropology, archaeology, that kind of stuff. And you would think psychology or psychiatry would have nothing to do with that field, but actually it does, because when you're digging in the dirt for pottery and bones and all those other kind of things, by the evidence you gain, you want to be able to try to understand the psychology of the culture you're looking at, and therefore better understand them. So I actually took quite a few of those kind of classes. It was just kind of required. And if you look at most of the psychology world's view on cults and stuff, they do focus more toward the religious ones, but they will talk about that 99th percentile, right? Is kind of what they're looking at with that. But I say it's a little more broader than that, because one thing I've learned in my life, and I understand very clearly, is that about 8% of any community you find yourself in is going to have busted and messed up people in it, right? And now their weirdness and oddness, it could be of all different types of flavor. It's not necessarily cultism, but it's always about 8% of the community that's kind of making all the trouble. Right, and that's just the reality of the human being, I guess. But cultism certainly falls within that. And these, if you look at some of these leaders, there's just some very famous cult leaders here, and most of them are dead. Yep, pretty much. And that's
Hmm.
Whoops.
whoops. And of course, this brings us to some of the tropes of cultism, because I'm just kind of in this primer, I'm just kind of covering the general idea of what cults are. One of the things about cults is very interesting. We use the word brainwashing a lot. A lot of people think that people are bullied into cults. And that's not actually true. It's more of that
Mm,
slick, snake oil salesman. That's a cult leader. And they don't bully you at all. They sweet talk you in. But
It's a
they
lot of I'd find it's a lot of promises of community,
Yeah,
family, love, and all that. Yes. Well, very lonely people
yeah,
a lot of the time.
yeah, I agree. And
Mm.
that's what they get to pull in. And of course, the bigger the cult gets, the bigger they will, the more people are willing to recruit and fight for the ideals of what they
Look at
believe in.
all
Right?
this family you can have. All
That's
these
right.
people who love you.
That's right. But there are some very interesting things that cults, all certain ways they always follow, certain things they always follow. Now, do keep in mind, however, that all cults, excuse me, all religions today are started as cults, all of them, right? That's how
Yes.
religions come to be, right? And some of them have been very successful, and we could talk about that a little bit if we want. But they all follow some very very similar patterns. One, it's apocalyptic, right? It is the end of the world, and the end of the world is coming, or someone's going to come and take
Mm-hmm.
you away from your suffering and pain. Aliens and UFOs has become quite popular, but they're
You
very,
can't have a
very.
cult without a doomsday prophecy half the time.
That's right. No, you have to. It's part of the mechanism of cultism, I think. And of course,
Mm.
another really interesting thing about that is if you go and take any kind of psychology class on cults or what have you, one of the things that the teacher is going to tell you is how to identify someone who's in a cult. And one of the telltale points is the person has lost their humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great picture.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you very much. Right. Now, of course,
nine.
9. But of course, if you haven't noticed already, I've already made several little sneaky references to a certain cult that's going on these days, that is called SJWism, because they
Oh,
are apocalyptic. They have no humor. They have a leadership that will not truck any manner of disagreement. They fit. It fits every single detail of the description or definition of a cult, right?
Mm.
And but this lack of humor is a very interesting point, I think. Now, of course, these days we have some. Like I said, there's thousands of cults around you. But there are, of course, some very famous ones. The most famous one, of course, is this one, Scientology. Right now,
Oh,
the
Johnny Joy.
yeah, that's the best memory you have to have. Now, you might not realize this with Scientology, but they're very large. They're worldwide. There are several countries in Europe, particularly, that have made them illegal because they consider them a terrorist organization. And do understand that Scientology does have a militant branch, literally a militant branch. They actually have giant cruise ships that they have the militant types sail around the world just to be able to get wherever they need to get to in case the emergency time comes. Right? That's Scientology. Also, keep in mind that an enormous chunk of Hollywood is in this. Right?
Mhm.
But this is the most famous cult from modern times. But then again, then that brings up the idea of what is a cult, because this starts to convolute the conversation. Because there's one major religion. Matter of fact, it's the biggest religion on the planet. It's called Christianity. Now, Christianity is an apocalyptic group, is it not? Are they not?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
are if you get into talk about their topics and stuff, are they not humorless about it? Right?
Hmm.
Um, and of course, the interesting thing for me about particularly Catholicism, specifically, is how they began. And now there are many little things around Yeshua or Jesus, and the interesting thing for me is the Catholic Church is the biggest thing on the planet when it comes to Christianity. Of course, the Lutheran revolts, back in the Reformation time, of course, created all these modern Protestant groups, which there are thousands of them. But Catholicism was kind of its thing for a very long time. Now, here on the left, you have a picture of Mithra. And here on the right, you have a picture of Jesus, and I'd say he's a very handsome fellow right there. And
Mm.
the
I'd smooch him.
Yeah, you would certainly. Yeah, and you'd be struck down by God for daring to touch the
What?
flesh of His Son, you bastard. But nevertheless, the important thing is, say, well, there's no comparison because Mithra was this young, youthful God. But of course, all the aspects of Catholicism and all their tropes and all their ceremony are coming out of Mithra directly, actually. But here's the interesting thing you might not realize: this picture of Jesus on the right, or Yeshua, that's not at all what he looks like, by the way. If you go back and look at the old things of Jesus and all that kind of stuff, he was a clean shaven, beautiful young man, just like the one on the left, right? This is a very much a modern interpretation of what Jesus looks like. Understand that this is coming out of the Europeans, yeah. So Jesus would have looked more like the left than he does the right, actually, originally. But nevertheless, it's an interesting thing of how the cult of Mithra became the Catholic Church. And
Did
you
you
know,
say that cult plus time equals religion?
Yep, that's true. It
Yeah.
is a very true thing. But keep in mind, though, that if you want to find actual Christians, real Christians, who follow the actual teachings of the dude Yeshua, you need to go to Africa and you need to find the Gnostics, because those are actual adherents of the original teachings of Yeshua. Everything that's come after that is some person's, interpretation. It has a lot of cultural molding, and various things have been put on top of it. Now, I'm not knocking anybody's religion. You're happy to have whatever you want. I'm not even saying it's not even true. That's not the point. I'm talking about the mechanism of the bureaucracy of it is what I'm getting at. And of course, another really important point before I stop and we come over and just start talking generally about it. Another thing that shows up a lot, and we've already talked about this twice or three times maybe, is polygamy. Now, why is sex and polygamy specifically so concentrated amongst cultic religions? And of course, the answer is really really simple. Polygamy is a survival technique, right? It's how you have small communities in ancient times would be able to build their population and be able to survive, and because you need more hands on hand to get stuff done. And of course, even in the Bible, if you are a Christian or if you're a Muslim and believe in the Quran or whatever religion you believe in, polygamy is not against those rules. Matter of fact, they are encouraged. It's very clear in the Bible that you can have as many wives as you can maintain. The only
I don't
people
even know anyone who can handle one wife.
Well, that
Uh,
is a fair point. But I'm just saying, the only people who in the Bible who are restricted from having multiple wives are priests, and they're only allowed to have one, and they must not drink from the vine. The Catholics got that
Nerds.
backwards, didn't they? Right?
Yeah, well, we could do a whole show on how many changes to the Bible the Catholics
Oh,
made,
the
but go.
Catholics have radically altered it. Yeah, that's true. But this aspect, and some people say, "Oh, it's disgusting and horrible," and I don't think so. I disagree with that. We do have this modern idea where men, in general, agree. This is sorry, ladies, it's not about you; it's about us in this point. But men generally agree in monogamy, one woman to each man. It's kind of like a modern agreement. I get that. But polygamy is not a bad thing at all. If you have enough money to support multiple wives and you want to have a big family, I don't really have a problem with it at all. Now, and there are many polygamous relationships across the world that function just fine. You
Hmm.
know, Branch
I highly
Davidian
dislike
is not
polygamy, Chester.
what?
I highly dislike polygamy. If all the Chads are taking all the hot chicks, there are no honeys left for Booster.
Well,
True,
that's
true.
exactly why it was largely abandoned in the West, was because all the women, or the quality women anyway, were centralized in the hands of a few very powerful people.
Hmm.
Nothing but uglies for Booster, and
That's right.
Booster doesn't want to have uglies, but he'll
Hey,
do it.
big girls ride
I have
free, baby.
big girls right for free.
Yeah, but no, it's a fair point. I mean, if you actually go and look at the anthropological data, and you understand that what the percentage of men that have produced the modern world's population, it's shocking, dude. Most men in the
Yes.
ancient world were not making babies. It was a
No.
small group of men who were making
Dying
all the
on
babies.
battlefields for kings who didn't even know their name. That's
That's
what
right.
most of them were.
That's right. But I just want to put this out. I understand polygamy can be a bad thing. I mentioned Branch Davidian, and that's a very ugly example of it. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Not really. But the reason why it's attached to cults and the sex cult thing comes up a lot is it's a survival technique. You're part of a very small group and you want to expand your numbers because here's the thing most cults do not survive their first generation, right? Because
Mhm.
there's a charismatic leader, which we already covered, and that leader, once that leader dies, they fall apart. If you want
Hmm.
to have a second generation, a third generation, fourth generation,
You
oh,
have to
now we're
create a
becoming
religion.
you that's a religion, right? Now you become a religion. You need
Mhm.
bodies. And putting a lot of babies on that is a way to do that because the easiest way to brainwash and indoctrinate anyone is to make one.
I think one of the easiest ways to tell the difference between, I mean, cult has a negative connotation in the
It
modern
does.
world,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't, because it just means religious practices outside of an organized religion, really. I mean, nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the ways to tell if the culture in is decent is if the leader or leaders of it will allow people in that could potentially threaten their position. If, like, say you have a really charismatic leader,
Hmm.
if he brings in very charismatic people into the thing, into the group, he's probably a good person, because he's not just trying to build a power base for himself, or it's not about his ego or whatever. Maybe he does really believe the things he's telling you. And these can be anything from wackadoo spiritual stuff to just political beliefs.
Yeah.
It really depends on the actions of the people at the top, on whether or not it's a decent place to be. It's not always just because it's declared a cult or is a cult automatically evil. And there's many examples of this, that some of these have been mentioned, in fact.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and
Hmm.
and keep in mind that these days they tend to define what Thundera just spoke about more as a new religious sect. Rather than actually calling them a cult, because although technically they are a cult, if they are willing to grow and be open, which there are many that are, they're not really a dangerous thing. Because I
So,
mean, one of the
but
points we have to kind of cover is cultism always dangerous? Go ahead, Booster.
all right. Well, then I'd like to ask, what would you classify as a dangerous cult?
The opposite of what Thunder just laid out. If you have a cult leader who will not truck any manner of opinion, and they often they degrade themselves because what you see with cults, like say let's take Jamestown, right? Jamestown, and
Mhm.
I forget what they call their religion, but that cult everyone knows about. You know, don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? It's a very perfect example of how cults evolve, the evil ones, because as he went along, he started becoming more and more radical because he was a drug addict and he was
Mhm.
messing his head up. And as he became more and more radical, he shed many members until he got down to around 1,000 people who were so devoted that they didn't care how radical he became. And this is how cults usually come to their end. These evil ones, they become more and more radical. A cult that starts out and stays to its initial tenets, which would draw people in because they're wholesome, and stick to those, they will end up becoming a religion, right?
Mhm.
And we have many examples of that. Let's take the Mormon Church. The Mormons are cultists, right? And but then again, but if you look at it, the Mormons today, I would say they're far more beneficial to the communities that they live in and the communities around them than harmful. But that's an
Mhm.
absolute cult.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And any of them are. I mean, there's many examples. There's even I was just reading. There's one in. They're technically part of a different sect of Christianity, but it's in where was it? It's in Newfoundland, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
There's a church there run by a Korean man, and his father ran it before them, where they can basically consider themselves a theocracy in this church. They claim to worship God and Jesus, and their philosophy is love thy neighbor as thyself. However, the leader of the church calls himself basically a king, and they basically worship guns. Like they literally have
Awesome.
ceremonies where they bring in guns and they bless the guns and then they leave and da 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 da. It's a real big thing for this particular sect. I would consider that a cult until they do something that is, he advocates violence, which they've never done. He advocates any kind of, threats against the government or anything, which he's never done. Um, then they're perfectly benign. It's a little weird, but they're perfectly benign if people want to believe it and follow it,
Sure.
and they're free to do so.
Well,
Uh,
I
I
I can
think the
give you
Mormons, for the most part, are the same. They made some things like even recently they found out that someone was lying and had stolen all kinds of money or something. Um, but that happens in every religious organization. Let's be honest. There's a lot of embezzlement that goes on at the top.
sure.
Uh, so it just depends on like I was saying what the leaders do and what they're willing to do, like who they're willing to bring in. Anybody who could challenge their position as leader that has the charisma or the intelligence or whatever, if they purposefully keep them out, then that's how you know you're in a
Mhm.
position, you're in a place where you're probably in a bad cult, you're in a bad
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
because that person has doesn't have the best interest of you at heart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, never trust a Korean. You know, first. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
Second, my wife is looking at me sideways. Uh, uh, but you got to understand how far the Mormons have come. They've really become an actual religion. Because I mean, if you go back to when they were founding out in Salt Lake and stuff, they used to send little raiding parties to other little, settlements, and they would steal women. I mean, that's where they were, and look where they are now, right? So they have come a long way, and like I said, I think they do far more good than harm. And that's what I would consider a religion. If you're a cult that does more good than harm, you are a religion. That's how I would define it, right?
Mhm.
And Mormons have certainly become that, I think. But there was a time where they were a dangerous cult, most certainly, right? And this is I think Mormons are very useful to this conversation. Not to pick on any Mormons in the group, because I know we do have Mormons amongst us, but they're really a good example because they're so modern. It's a good look at how a cult can become a religion, right? It's a very good example of that because it's such a modern take on it. And if you look at their beliefs, they are quite radical. Right? Because what are they doing? They have the Bible. They have the angel that came to John Smith and gave him the Bible. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Uh,
Yes.
Of course, it had a lot of radical ideas. And of course, the big ideas they had were the Jews came to America long ago, and that's most people don't understand that about the Mormons. But because most people think, oh, Jesus during his 40 days of walking after he was crucified, came to the New World and preached to the Native Americans. That's what most people associate with the Mormons. But actually, they also believe that the Jews were of course, the Hebrews were in America as well. Now, here's the interesting archaeological side to that. There have been a lot of ancient Hebrew text, stones, religious items, and stuff found throughout America. And I bet most of you have never heard that before. So it's kind of interesting. I'm kind of wondering how John Smith made that little leap. Did he know something about some, Hebrew stones that were found somewhere, and he'd heard about that, and he made that part of it, or not? And then the religious belief
Oh,
comes into the
you know,
conversation.
Jimmy is Slick Jimmy is Mormon. We should ask him about that. He might
We
upset
should.
him a little.
I
Yeah.
don't think so. Here's the humorless thing, right? If you go and talk to a Christian, they get picked on all the time. They're under a constant attack these days. But you talk to a Christian, they smile and have an opinion that is non-aggressive. Well, those people are just religious people, right? And the Mormons, like I said, have become an actual religion these days. So I don't have anything against Mormons whatsoever. I don't think Slick would have a problem with that. We can't
Might
run
be
away from our
okay.
past,
Oh.
right? Hey, what's up, model? Model?
Hey, it's
What?
me, a model.
Sorry,
I'm
I was
really happy
running a
to
little
show.
bit late today.
Oh, that's okay,
Oh,
dude.
you're
Yeah, we're talking about Mormonism right now.
Oh, that cult?
Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Well, no,
no.
I think it's a
one,
perfect example for our conversation. But anyway, go ahead.
one thing. Speaking about how you said that they've evolved into a more modern, just a religion, really.
Yeah, I think
There
so.
were pretty much all of their existence up until I think like the 90s or 80s. I don't know exactly. They had within their tenets of their most, their highest ranking members to destroy the government of the United States of America because of the way
Oh,
they
sure.
perceived they were persecuted by the governments of the United States of America
Well, they
for
were.
centuries.
That's
And
why
they
they
were.
went
I mean,
west, right? Yeah,
but as far as I understand, they've abandoned that particular tenet, and now they don't preach that at all anymore.
I'm
Um,
sure. Yeah,
and
yeah,
they've modernized a lot of things. It's pretty much just a completely modernized Christian-esque religion. There's a lot of things in there that like other sects, delineate it from other sects of Christianity. But yeah, I think Mormonism it's perfectly fine. They seem to breed healthy and happy families
yep,
from all accounts. So, as Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruits. By their fruits, you will know them. And
yeah.
if their fruits look good, then how can I say it's bad?
I do believe the word labor was in there as well.
A
And
lot of
if you
fruits.
look at the labor of the Mormons, it's freaking impressive, dude. They
Fruits.
built paradise in the middle of a freaking salt lake, dude. And no joke. But Brigham Young made them legitimate. He made them what they are today, and good for him actually for doing that because he made it something legitimate. And of course, the pursuit of God is a very human thing. Because it's kind of one of the curses of having the intellect that we have, the sentience that we have. It makes it impossible for you to perceive actual oblivion. This is something that the human mind can't actually see. No matter how much the atheists want to jump up and down and scream about it, you cannot actually perceive oblivion. And therefore, humans tend toward the religion because they want an answer to something that no one has an answer to. And this is where the power of the cult comes in, right? Now, Model has come in, and I'd love to him to give his kind of general opinion of the conversation.
Well, we're not just going to stay focused on the religious aspect of cults, are
Of
we?
course not.
Because
Of course not.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think most people would consider the Manson family a cult
Most
in the
certainly.
traditional sense, and yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, sure. No, it's not just religious. So we covered that in one of the very first things I said. But these days, when you say cult, most people think religion.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
there's an automatic connotation of religion there, and it's normally it's sometimes they do involve religion, but the fundamentals of the group usually aren't that religious.
Okay, well, I think we set that primer up, and we're definitely going to cover that model. But before we get too far, Booster, can you do me a favor and catch us up with what the chat's saying?
Oh, they've been blasting at us, Chester. I don't even remember where we left off because I wasn't
Chester
watching.
and Antichrist and everything else. I mean, they've just been going off.
All right, here we're talking about not letting Booster into the Cult of Raven Discord because they're bullying me. P.S. Melter says Blue Oyster Cult is pretty good cult.
They are. I like that one.
Nick C is going on about the CM Punk for some reason. Eric Hogan says, I would recommend Cults Explained on Netflix. Oh, we probably should look at that afterwards, shouldn't we then? The Metals says, usually you have to be reasoned into a cult, which is why it's hard to get people with below average IQ into cults. That's really fascinating. And it's true as well. Sociopaths and psychopaths, they don't function in cults at all. Yeah. It's not, we usually perceive people who are stupid or, how do you say, mentally disabled, I was about to say retarded, as members of cults.
Yeah, and besides, sex with idiots isn't fun at all.
That's right. Was it James? If Beverage says yes, the world's going to ruin, and the deity God will cleanse it with an apocalypse.
That's right.
One day. Let's hope.
Was it Piers Melton says Battlefield Earth makes more sense than comics out now in all spectrums. I guess we were talking about John Travolta earlier.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Mel says, yeah, Scientologists, secret messed up and don't even know about. And people don't even know about it. People think they are harmless tax evaders. Yeah, Scientology, there's so much messed up crap about them if you kind of go digging. We could do an entire TFT based on Scientology alone, I'm sure.
And we've touched on them a couple times. Scientology is a dangerous cult. Now, who knows? They might have some charismatic leader come up and make them illegitimate. Well, they could have it, right? But as it stands right now, they have a very young man who supposedly now has the soul of L. Ron Hubbard has returned, and he stands within him. So they're not going anywhere quick. I'm saying that, at least.
Nick C says Chester really doesn't like Christianity. Huh.
Why? Why?
I have no idea how that came up. Jennifer H says, is K-pop apocalyptic? Absolutely.
Damn straight it is. K-pop is awful. Never trust a Korean.
It is the final sign of the apocalypse, yes.
Yes.
James of Beverage says, Jesus wasn't that white, lol. That's right. Jesus was full hood. And verify.
He was a Jew.
Black. He was 100% black.
Verify. No, he wasn't. He was a Jew.
He was Kang. Nick C says, I get the feeling Chester's parents wouldn't let him play D&D and listen to AC/DC as a kid.
No, I started playing D&D when I was 9. My father did make a comment to me which made no sense. He said, "You do know what AC/DC stands for, right?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "It means they go both ways." And I was like, "No, I think it's electrical current conversation." But I think my dad was thinking more Queen. He didn't really pay attention to what AC/DC was on about because those dudes got laid a lot.
Oh yeah, baby.
A lot.
James Beveridge says religion is social engineering using indoctrination from infancy. That's the soft infrastructure that keeps it viable.
Yeah, but then again, that could be said about everything. Yeah, go ahead.
Nick C says apocalyptic, humorless, polygamy. So Fanspeak is a cult. Yes.
Yay!
If you'd like to subscribe to Fanspeak and send super chats, you will go to heaven.
Yes, baby. But they said I could be polygamous, baby. See, the good thing about that comment is she doesn't know what that word means.
Brilliant. She goes, yes, Chester-san, love polygamy. Bullet says, fat woman don't deserve my love.
No, she does know what it means. Uh-oh. She said, fine, then I get more boys. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Well, hold on a second before you read that real quick. The interesting thing about that, there are a couple examples on Earth of polygamy from the woman having multiple husbands. But the reason that doesn't happen very often is because it's very slow and inefficient. One man and multiple women is a very quick way to build up a village, right? Go ahead.
The middle says polygamy works better when most men in society are conscripted into military campaigns. Okay.
Well, because you reduce the amount of competition, right?
Next he says fan speak indulgences seem to be directed to New Zealand. What does he mean by that?
It means
Money.
I don't know.
you're oily homosexual. That's what he means.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Curious 2A says big girls are like mopeds. They are fun to ride until your friends catch you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
James F. Beveridge says humans don't need any survival strategies any longer. We haven't needed any for centuries. Very true. Yes. Someone makes a Hobbit comment. I don't care for that. Roger Hello, I believe, says that like the KKK. I guess he's referring to them as a cult. Would you say that the KKK were a cult?
Sure.
Sure. Don't see why not.
Yeah. Well,
Next,
them Democrats have had a lot of cults over the years, dude. Hey, go ahead.
next
They
he
do
says
love
don't talk that way
organizations,
about.
don't they?
Yeah, they do, dude. Sorry. Go ahead, Buster.
Next he says don't talk that way about EVS. Yeah.
The Butter King shall rule forever.
Send super chats. Curious 2A says a gun cult. How do I join? That you just got to become American.
Yeah.
Ink Spots is here. He says, "Did someone say
Uh-oh.
fat chicks? I got my tub of butter and baby oil. Put me in, coach."
Jesus, ink spots. Now that would turn this conversation very radically. Go ahead.
And we'll have our own sex cult. Next he says, "Bow before Chester. He defines us. Bow to Chester."
There you go. Now you got the right thinking.
Ash and Jackal is a name I haven't heard. What the hell did I just walk into? I don't know.
No, just kind of
I
a
guess.
practical, just a Sunday evening conversation about what cults are. That's about it.
And that's about all of it. Those are the ones I could bothered reading.
All right. Well, for the rest of you who are
Cronus
ignored by
Byron says Democrats are just sick, perverted, orgy pedophiles. Yes, they are.
there they are. No, I mean, and I didn't say that offhand without thought. By the way, the Democratic types or just the liberal types are far more, likely to be in a cult than a conservative-minded person. I mean, I'm obviously a conservative. I do have some libertarian views, but I'm obviously conservative. But for me, I would never subjugate my will to anybody, right? But at the same time, I'm not a fan of anything, of anyone particularly. I don't put anyone above myself, and of course, I don't put myself above anybody else either. But for me, the world is a level playing field. You dictate yourself by your own actions, right? So conservative-minded people tend to think this way, and I have a feeling many of the people in the chat are this way. The cult people tend to be liberal-minded, even progressive types that are above average intelligence, I would say.
The fundamentals of cults are very communist in nature.
They are. Yeah. It is
Parties, acronyms, leaders that are elevated and above even the rules themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And one of the big ones, I don't think we discussed this one. A very big sign you're in a cult is the just absolutely trying to destroy someone if they attempt to leave.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, and Thundera covered that because he was talking about what is the difference between a bad cult and a good cult, and a good cult is one that is open for conversation, right?
There is a general list of signs. Have you guys looked those up?
I actually have them on hand if you'd like me to.
There
go
you
for
go.
'em.
Go for it, Booster.
All right, number 1, opposing critical thinking. Number 2, isolating members and penalizing them for leaving.
Yeah.
Number 3, emphasizing special doctrines outside scripture. Number 4, seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. Number 5, dishonoring the family unit. Number 6, crossing biblical boundaries of behavior versus sexual purity and personal ownership. And 7, separation of church. This is listed by.
So are you reading the one from the Atlantic by chance?
Yes.
The 7, yeah, that's the 7, and that has a very religious connotation to it. I've got another one that's 10, and
Yep.
it's really not religious based at all. Would you like to hear
Let's
those?
hear it.
Well, I
Absolutely.
would, but interesting. Before you get into that, when I was in school, way back in the '80s, talk about university, there were 6. That's interesting. It keeps growing. Yeah, and once again, all those things Booster just said, does that not every point for point, literally point for point, not make you think of SJWism?
Yes.
And this one will even more.
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
Let's go. Let's
I'm
go.
going to name their
All
god.
right. Number 1, the leader is the ultimate authority.
hmm
Number 2, the group suppresses skepticism. Number 3, the group delegitimizes former members. Number 4, the group is paranoid about the outside world.
Ooh.
Number 5, the group relies on shame cycles. That's important. Cycles. The leader is above the law.
Hmm.
The group uses thought reform methods. The group is elitist.
hmm
There is no financial transparency. and the group performs secret rites. Now, I know a certain cult that hits all 10 of those. If you know what I mean.
I think we all do.
I'm not talking about that one.
Which one are you talking about? I missed that.
I have no idea.
I don't know. It has an acronym and everything.
What? Antifa?
Well,
Yeah, sure. We'll go with
yeah,
that.
them too.
Yeah, Antifa.
Oh, I see. I was being dense. I see. It's a Comicsgate reference. I got it.
Oh,
I got it.
No,
Yeah.
there you go.
I got it.
And now we're disavowed. Good work.
Oh no.
Oh,
Didn't
goodness
keep it.
gracious. But, of course, with this touches.
The funny thing is, real quick, Booster, I was disavowed by Comicsgate multiple times, and yet here I am. So I don't really care if they disavow me.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
well, yeah. I'm not really, but I mean that also brings up the conversation of cult over cultism or cultistic ideas, and I think we all have a little bit of cultism in some ways. Simply being part of any community or clique has some cultic aspects to it, of course. But no, that's an interesting point. It's very interesting to me that it's gone from 6 when I was a young man to 10. Damn. It grows. Is that
Insidiously.
yeah, right? As cults tend to do. But the interesting thing for me is how many there are. I mean, because a lot of us probably think there's just a few. It's not, dude. There are thousands and thousands of these things all over the place. It's just shocking the number of them. And Japan's got a bunch of them too. Like for instance, hey, baby, what's a big cult in Japan right now? A successful one. I mean, like, what's that one down there that looks like a upside down boat? What do they call themselves? Yeah, but they take a lot of money from old people. What's their name? She can't remember. We walk by and see some of their offices sometimes. I know.
Is it that she can't remember, or she doesn't want to divulge
Oh, no.
secrets?
I think it has more to
What
do with
about-
she doesn't care
what
with
about
my
the,
annoying,
Shoko-
silly things I do. I think that's pretty much what it is.
What about the
Was
one with
was
Shoko
the Sun
Asahara?
Moon cult the one that released the gas?
The Asahara, yeah, the Om.
Yeah. Are they still going, or did they disband after the leader
They
died?
changed their name. Baby, what does Om call themselves now? She can't remember the name. They changed their name. They're still around. Yeah, they're still around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I did bring something up I want to look at, and of course we can go anywhere you guys want with the conversation. But I thought this might be fun to have a laugh because it's when you look at cults, they take it very seriously. Like I mentioned, one of the big things if you're to notice if someone is in a cult, they have lost their sense of humor, right? So they don't take anything very funny, but we can have a laugh, most certainly.
Especially if you're mocking their cult.
Yeah, well, particularly, yeah.
They cannot handle it. They cannot handle any kind of questions of dissent.
Now, I have this stuff here, but
Especially for great people.
let's do this one here. This article is from Ranker, and it's titled "Pumpkin, You're in a Cult." So Grandma's trying to help you. Pretty nice. And a Rothschild is writing this. Holy, that's
Oh
that.
boy.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
Jesus, dude. Talk.
Uh-oh.
Is that someone's sense of irony? Is this a?
Oh.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. Anyway, we're going to happy science. Is the love of the teacher our leader? Oh, if you're looking for a mashup of world religions, New Age hokum, far right nationalism, and infrastructure spending, then Japanese cult's Happy Science is for you. It was founded in 1986 by
Anything but far right nationalism, for goodness sake.
right. But this was founded by Okawa, former salaryman who was enraptured by a group called the God Light Association. He soon formed his own cult of personality called Science of Happiness. Now, that cult of personality, I think, is part of what Model was hinting at because, like North Korea is certainly a cult of personality, right? And there's no religion. Matter of fact, they are staunchly atheist, right? Because they're communists, supposedly atheists. So it's an interesting point. But this one right here, you guys ever heard of realism?
Hmm.
Yeah, these guys are great. That dude, that leader right there on the right, you see the dude with the bald head and the little hair bun and his little space outfit. This guy has gotten laid more than any Hollywood actor in their wildest dream. No, seriously, right? Because this is a cult. This is a full-on sex cult, and this dude has just tons of ladies. It's shocking how big this group is. Realism, actually, and they believe in weird alien UFO stuff, right? The
Why is it
Brethren.
always aliens?
I know. Well, I think it's a modern expression of God, right? Just like superheroes are a
Hmm.
modern expression of gods, right? Um,
Yeah,
uh,
like Greek gods. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The
Not like the
Brethren.
god.
Well, even the God, right? Do keep in mind
Hmm.
that the God, the Abrahamic God, didn't become God until the Babylonians conquered Israel and took them in imprisonment. That's when a monotheism began, right? Because before that, the Hebrews were not monotheistic. Sorry to shock you. Anyway, the Brethren. I'm not going to get into why. That'd be a long conversation. But the Brethren, these are another ones that I've heard of before. These guys don't. They're kind of like Mennonites, right? And Mennonites another type of cult, a sect, I guess you call it. But these guys are weird. Fundamentalist Latter Day Saints, Mormonism. Oh, don't pick on the Mormons.
Uh,
We like the
don't pick on Slick
Mormons.
Jimmy again. Don't pick on Slick Jimmy.
Yeah, 12 tribes.
We
This
like
one.
him.
Yeah,
We
this
like him very
one's.
much.
Yeah. Oh, this one is awesome. Nubian Nation. I love this. This is if you don't know what these guys are, go check them out because it's hilarious. This is you guys heard that meme that's been going on a couple of years now. We was kings. You know that
Oh
one?
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We was in fact Kangs, yes.
Yes,
Just like Jesus,
that's right.
the
This
baby
right
Jesus
here is
hood.
the quintessential "We was kings" cult. Is what it
it's
is.
Kangs. It's Kangs,
I'm
Chester.
sorry.
You have to say
We
Kangs.
was
Kangs.
kings. I do
Everybody want
apologize
to
for
be
my
Kang.
lack of
For anybody
colloquial
who's seen,
ability.
anybody who's seen what Chester looks like, he's one of the whitest men in the world. So that's why he has no ethnic ting in his voice at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel trod upon.
Don't
As
worry,
you
I'm part of
should,
the
white man.
I am very white. I am a Celtic man for sure, Northern Celt, and I have a beautiful white beard as well. So I look very.
He's almost transparent. You just he becomes the color of what you put him with.
That's kind of true. Yeah, it's kind of true. Yeah, but that's all right. So we was Kangs. Did I did better? Did I did better?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
But
you did it in the whitest way possible.
thank you, thank you. I'm bowing. I'm bowing. But these guys are hilarious. Go
Thank
check
you.
out
Thank you.
Nubian Nation, dude. They are out their damn mind. It's hilarious. But
They were Wakanda before Wakanda was
oh,
Wakanda.
that's exactly true. That's exactly
Wakanda
true.
forever.
Yeah, there's actually a Wakandan cult now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, dude.
Yeah.
We,
I got
yeah, but these guys are Black Power, Black Panther type of people, right? Modern version of it, and they
I think
love.
Denali is in that cult.
He probably is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's probably why we haven't seen him. He's being indoctrinated right now. Ugh.
It's true. Yeah.
Goodness gracious. It's kind of weird because I mean, first of all, does anyone in on Earth actually assume that the Africans have never had culture or built anything? Anybody? Anybody?
Yeah, I do.
All right, you're a bastard. All right, so
Oh,
but I don't know why they're so obsessed with Egypt though, or actually, let's be more precise and call it Chem, because understand Egypt, the word Egypt is Greek, and it's when the Greeks took over. When the Ptolemies took over the Egypt, that's when it became Egypt. Before that, it was Chemisia. The Cometians were actually an incredibly cosmopolitan culture, for sure, but their leadership was not black. Most of the blacks were actually made up the military. The Nubians, particularly, but this they it, you know you could go Ethiopia. I don't know why they don't focus more on Ethiopia, because now you have
absolutely.
right, because there's a culture and a country that has an extremely long history. They had plenty of kings, and it's full black. That's a black. Successful culture, Ethiopia. I know they don't look like it now, but they used to be badass. They were so powerful that they were actually on fairly equal terms with Egypt for a while. But yet
And there are some legitimate cults in Ethiopia that are benevolent.
oh yeah,
In fact, there's a lot of history that ties the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. It's very interesting.
it's true. But I just don't understand because there are actual Black African cultures of the past that you can praise, you can talk about, you can identify with. But Egypt isn't one of them, man. It's just not. It's not. Egypt grew up out of Mesopotamia.
Yes. What
Well,
do you think about General Butt Naked?
I don't know. But I
I
want to
know,
know
but I've heard of
more.
him.
He's an interesting fellow. Definitely a cult.
What is his deal?
Wasn't he the
Uh,
guy who just ran around in Africa just murdering people while he's, as they say,
yeah,
butt naked?
but yeah, he's a real guy. Yeah, it's one of these murder cults that decimated villages, and his name was General Butt Naked.
Wow, that's pretty. Wow, damn.
I believe
Well,
Count Dankula did a video on him in his Absolute Mad Lad series.
oh, I see. Well, the problem, Africa has occultism, of course. Every place does. But the problem with the African cults is they tend to be extremely violent. Where you'll have certain individuals a part of other cults that might do violent actions. It's actually we were talking about this earlier. It's actually very rare that a cult leader actually orders any kind of violence. It usually is the members trying to appease the leader or be noticed by a leader is more common. Africa, however, and the cultism in Africa is excessively violent. But then again, pretty much everything goes on in Africa involves some manner of violence, and this is a problem. Now, and it's an antiquated problem because if you go back in history and look at pretty much every other culture on the planet, they were extremely violent compared to what we have today. It's just we've modernized ourselves, we've civilized ourselves. The Africans still have that antiquated thinking. Middle East does too. But yeah, cultism in Africa is a bloody affair. That's for sure. The Congregation for the Light. Okay, that doesn't sound interesting. Builders of the Iditum. I don't know what that is. That's
Can I
weird.
give you a little info blurb here, Chester?
Sure.
General Butt Naked, it was born Joshua Milton Balayi, and it says General Butt Naked is a former commander. He was born in 1971, so he's still alive.
Wow,
Oh,
you're younger than me.
he's still out there with his dong out.
Yep, the Liberian warlord Roosevelt Johnson
Damn.
was
Johnson.
the commander, and it was the first Liberian Civil War in the early 1990s. So this is not that long ago.
Well, Liberia, of course, is for those of you who don't know, after the Civil War ended, a lot of blacks decided to go back to Africa. A huge number of them, and the government actually put money up for that at that time. And of course, these blacks who left America and went over to Africa, established a colony, and they created a nation which is called Liberia.
Hmm.
So
and
Interesting
immediately
connection.
went around enslaving other blacks.
Immediately,
Yeah,
yeah,
this
yeah.
this General Butt Naked claims that he killed 20,000 people, carried out regular human sacrifice and cannibalism of children.
Oh yeah,
So
no.
he's a real special, sweet guy.
Yeah, you don't want to get into African cultism, dude. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Ironic thing in this conversation that came up is the fact that when I was younger, I actually met and knew James Monroe, who was the president of Liberia, but he was living in an asylum in America because there was a civil war going on there. But I actually made friends with him, oddly enough. Let's see. Supreme Master Ching Hai. Hi. Ching Hai. No. 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 Yeah, this is rare though. That looks like a female leader. That is a rare thing though, huh? They're usually male.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, men are
Well,
better at everything.
well,
Just
no,
face
but
that.
no. This seriously. Why is that true? Because there's a reason. Why is that true?
Well, because men are better at stuff.
Okay, but that's not actually the reason. Do you, anybody want to give a guess why it's usually men are occult leaders?
I would assume because masculinity leads to conquest, and it's a cult leading is a form of conquest. That's
I
why.
was gonna say because no one wants to take orders from like a shrill leader, you know. Let's go walk and lead things at them. Get out of here with that. We don't
Well,
need that woman.
although
You
these are
say
all
that, but then Germans vote for Angela Merkel
right.
and on huge
Yeah,
numbers.
but who's going to accuse the Germans of being men?
This is fair. This is fair. And those are all interesting observations. But the actual reason why mostly cults are led by men is because male cult leaders focus extremely on the female, right? And getting the women on board with you gets the men on board because men, by nature, by our very DNA, are disposed to the woman, right? So a male leader collecting women, he's ultimately going to collect men. I
Oh,
think
did
is
you know
the.
Jared Leto has a cult?
I'm sure he is member of several. He seems very
No,
cultish. Yeah.
literally, Google Jared Leto cult. He has a little cult on an island. It's with these rich guys and their freaking islands, and
Oh
all his
God, here we
followers,
go.
mostly women, they all call him the prophet. He's looking very much like
Jared
Jesus. They're all in
Leto
bloody white robes,
cult.
and he looks a bit like Jesus with sunglasses.
All right. Okay. Weirdo. Oh Jesus.
There he is, third image.
Oh goodness gracious. All right.
And how many
Yeah.
people really want to join a sandwich cult? Usually, you want a cult that has kind of like some serious kind of theme to it.
You would think so. I mean, peanut butter jelly is pretty badass, but I mean, come on. It is an interesting thing. Here, look at this. Right. Look at this. This. We see Hollywood folks, and I use that kind of entertainment people. We see them use these symbology quite a bit, and I've always had this question: do they,
Like
Jay
how?
Z does it? I mean, you even seen frickin' Bieber do it, and he's an admitted idiot. So, do you think they actually know what this symbology means, or are they just simply mimicking things?
They're just doing what they're told. There's Hollywood insiders who have blatantly said that a lot of the stuff you see, celebrities do like that, or like support, leftist globalism nonsense. They're told to do that. Now, some of them obviously believe it, but I think a lot of them just do it because that's who signs their checks, so
Yeah.
they think it's part of their job.
Well, these are Saturnal symbols, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who I was going to go with originally, but I think the equality cult is much more pertinent to what we deal with every day.
What? Oh my god. He's trying to outdo Ezra.
He's trying. He is. He is. But it just goes to show you. I mean, he's a pretty boy. He's charismatic, and I didn't even know this about him. But he's off my list. You're definitely off my list, sir. Definitely. Don't stop wearing dresses. What did I tell you? Yeah. Okay. That's weird. That's weird. All right.
A lot
Anyway.
of fruit.
Huh?
A lot of fruits from those cults.
Oh yeah. I wonder how many babies he's got running around right now. Um, Anyway, let me just go through the rest of this page, see if there's anything else interesting in here, and I'll come back up the other side. The Apostles of Infinite Love. Uh huh. Booster, you need to sign up for that. A House of
I want
Yahweh.
Infinite
Ooh,
Love, baby.
yeah. Churchill Bible Understanding. That's interesting. But all right, let me come back over the other side. But the oh, cults, man, they're funny. I didn't know
Good
about
fun.
Jared
Good
Leto.
time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then again, think about all the Hollywood people that are very cultic in their way. Johnny Depp, anyone?
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth
Gwyneth
Paltrow,
Paltrow and her
yeah,
freaking goop shit that she's got going on with all those
right.
women she's got following her with it. That is
Rihanna,
weird stuff. Yeah.
right. Any other names pop in your head of these very cultish people?
Mm.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Oh, I mean, there's so many of them. Madonna,
Yeah.
all of these people are all involved in really
Yeah,
weird stuff.
yeah,
Of course, Alison Mack of Smallville with her
yeah,
own little weird sex cult that she had going.
yeah. Yeah, I kind of did
There's
expect.
there's a much bigger story to that Nexium cult than a lot of people know, and even any of us know. But there is ties all the way into Mexico with that thing,
Well, Richard
and that
Branson was a
shooting,
member.
that shooting that happened on the border down there,
Oh, really?
where those Mormons were killed. Apparently, that was tied to Nexium. A couple of those girls were some of the recruiters.
Well, come on, the Mormons are asking for it though. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah,
send
I agree.
teams of people out around the world to go in their little white button downs and their black ties and go door to door trying to sell their religion. They're putting themselves in danger on their mission. And I'm not saying this ironically or sarcastically at all. I'm serious as a heart attack. You are putting your young men generally into extreme dangerous situations in some of these countries where they do that, dude. It's not. I don't know why they continue to do that. I understand the religious doctrine. I get all the dogma. Yeah, I get it. But let's be a little more discerning. Send them to countries where they won't get killed. How about that?
Sure, and the Mormons actually have a very long history of doing that, where they would send these young men out that had young wives, young kids. They'd send them out 3, 4 years. They'd be
Yeah.
away from home,
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's a dangerous
and it was
practice.
non-negotiable.
Yeah, no.
They had to go.
Yeah. Still is, dude. It's part of the church. It's the thing they
Hmm.
do. Although it's probably become voluntary by now, I would assume. But the
What about Fight Club?
Fight Club is definitely a cult. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that
especially
would be a political cult.
especially the Lady Fight Club. That one you want to watch out for that one.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, yeah. But let's shift a little bit and start talking about the cult of personality, which Model brought up. So go ahead and take the lead on that, Model.
Oh, geez, where am I supposed to pick up?
Fight Club.
The cult of personality.
Fight Club.
Well, basically, any cult of personality usually tends to revolve around one person who is motivated and has enough intelligence and charisma to stand out as a leader.
Mhm.
May not necessarily be a real leader, but can fake it.
Yeah. Well,
And
I think the
members tend
definition.
to be-
I'm sorry. I just to redefine it a little bit. I think what I meant by the cult of personality was non-religious cults.
yes,
Of
absolutely.
course, you just meant that kick-ass song, you know.
Cult of personality.
A song I don't ever need to hear again.
That's true.
Talk
That
about
was
a one-hit wonder.
that was a one-hit wonder. I'm sorry, Model. Go ahead, dude.
But the members of these type of groups tend to be very beta types, social outcasts who
Yeah.
are looking for some kind of inclusion or to be brought into something. And then the other aspects of the cult apply. But like you reiterated, it generally is a non-religious focused
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Yes. I think a good example of one right now that we're living in, and even people, maybe even in this panel and watching this, might not agree with this, but it's true, is Donald Trump. He's a cult of personality.
Oh, well, that's
I think
100%, dude. Yeah.
most of his followers are only following him because he's so it's ridiculous. I was watching, he did a rally the other night. I was watching it, and even if you disagree with the guy on most stuff or a lot of stuff, and I disagree with him on some stuff, he's just so much fun to watch. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's got great comic timing. You can tell like if he wouldn't have been a real estate guy for all of his life, he would have definitely just been in entertainment because he's hilarious. He's fun to watch. He's so charismatic. And you have people out here who, some people call them magatards, who will just defend anything he does to the death, no matter how ridiculous or silly it might be, or even if it's just something that, you might disagree with.
Uh-huh.
They'll to the death they'll offend him, and it's very cult-like.
Sure. Yeah, but are
This
you
happened to
laughing
Obama
with him
too.
or are you laughing at him?
No, I laugh with him usually because
Mhm.
usually he's making fun of the absolute worst people on the planet, which are journalists.
True.
So I'm fine with that. He can throw all the mud he wants at them all day long. He can back up whole trucks worth and just
Yeah.
dump it in their lap for
Yeah,
all I care.
lawyers must be happy.
Good times, always
They've
good
got a
times.
reprieve. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, and part of his entertainment value is what he isn't, as opposed to
Yes.
what he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
agree 100% with you. He's definitely a cult of personality type figure. Yeah. Most
Yeah, and I
politicians
think
are.
just like the same, like we were talking about, some are benevolent and some are benign and some are malevolent. And I think Trump is mostly benign as far as the cult-like aspect,
Mhm.
whereas his policies, you could make a case either way. But as far as his, cult-like following, it's mostly benign. And the reason you can say that is because where's the evidence that it's not? Until somebody produces, tons of evidence that it's not, which I guess there was one guy.
Jussie Smollett has a word to say to you.
I guess there's one guy who allegedly did some bombings.
This is
and
MAGA country.
big MAGA
Well,
guy.
the support for Barack Obama was very cult-like.
Of course.
Yes.
Most
And
people didn't know anything about him or
Yeah.
had no idea about his
I
accomplishments.
voted for him because he's black.
Yeah, but
with
see,
Trump, with Trumpism, which is what some people call it, the cult-like following he has, he also has a counter cult to him, which is TDS people, Orange Mad Bad, like
Right.
Nick C just said,
right.
who doesn't matter what he does, even if it's an objectively good thing. Nope, he's evil. He's only doing it for his ego. He's an evil guy.
Yeah.
We have to get him out of there. We have to blow up the White House. People literally say this publicly on Twitter. I don't know how they're not in jail, but they say this publicly, and that's apparently acceptable discourse.
Right. Well,
But
you-
it
Liberalism
goes
is a
both ways.
containment. Liberalism is a containment group for mental illness. So
oh,
you
it's
get-
true.
you
That
get
is
a
true.
lot of these, and it doesn't mean everybody, but if you're a classical liberal, sorry, I mean, take a look at your party. It's
Yeah.
it's off. It's bonkers.
And many of
But-
them are becoming conservatives and join the Republican Party. Donald Trump being a perfect example of one, because he's not a
Well,
conservative at
sure.
all.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as like people that are these weak-minded people, you see a lot of the stuff with multi-hair coloring, covering up in tattoos. There's almost a self-loathing and a dislike for who they naturally are,
Yeah.
where
Yeah, I know.
they're hiding behind policies, they're hiding behind weird fashion, weird hair color. There's psychologically, you could do a master thesis on politics in the United States right
You
now,
could.
and
Yeah.
and
Ma-
really someone should, because
There is a lot of masochism going on. You're absolutely right. But the big difference though between the cult of Trump and the cult of Obama, say, is, and it kind of goes on what Thundero had said. Um, you see, Trump is smart enough to know that he needs to hire specialists, right?
Mhm.
So, by the very nature of Trump, and therefore the cult of Trump, it is a cult that is open to other and outside ideas, which kind of covers what Thundero said about what makes a benign cult. Whereas in the cult of Obama, there is no questioning whatsoever. There is no need for specialization because Obama is the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, even. Well, I'm just saying it's a very clear delineation between the two.
Mhm.
And then if you come into something like, say, the cult of AOC, which strangely exists, then you really have to question the fate of humanity, because
Yeah, and they absolutely have a doomsday
Well, there's-
prophet as well.
yeah, there's a politics cult in general, regardless of party lines in this country. How many Americans actually think that the sitting president can like go over to a button and just bomb a country or
Right.
launch missiles? I mean, there are people that legitimately think that the president can just go, okay, yeah, we're gonna go and bomb this place. And it's so widespread, in fact, that it's almost sad. It's an ignorance in the system and what goes on,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, all these people, their votes count as much as everybody else, but they're so culty in their thinking.
Yes.
And probably the media had a lot to do with that. You
No,
know, if
certainly.
One thing, and absolutely, including other politicians who said things like, "We don't want Trump's finger on the button." People
yeah,
took that
absolutely.
literally and thought
Yep.
he literally just has a button where he can just nuke China. Just boom, he presses a
Well,
button. And
American
there it
politics is like the
Boom. Child of
WWE.
God. You're welcome.
You know, there's one owner, and he gets rich no matter who wins the wrestling matches, but the fans all split themselves up into teams, and the fans they always lose, and that's the way our politics are. The
Baby.
people
Yes.
always lose, but the politicians just keep getting richer and richer.
Mhm. Well,
The Democrat Republican really is an illusion of choice. So get out of the cult.
that's true. That's a fair point you're making. And the interesting thing about this is, uh, excuse me, you have a certain number of people in the world who, when Trump was impeached, they thought he was no longer president. Right? It's idiocy, right? But at the same time, we have Nancy Pelosi and other political Democratic leaders who are sitting there trying to pass resolutions in the House to control the military function of the president. And of course,
Hmm.
they can't do that. They have no right. So they can say whatever they want, but I don't care what resolution they pass. We have separated the three parts of government intentionally. The president could do whatever the hell he wants. Now, sure, Congress controls the declaration of war, but the president is the commander in chief.
Yes.
So I mean, it shows you the idiocy goes deep, dude. It's just not these. It's not only these people who are uninformed, who don't bother to research anything. Just like I keep complaining about the damn comic book stuff, and then not bothering to do any research whatsoever. It's also the people in charge. You have actual people in the House of Representatives who believe they can control and do this. Nancy Pelosi trying to tell the Senate what to do is unconstitutional behavior.
Yes.
Can we address something in the chat too? Kronos says that he has an issue with what I said, and he said that that Trump just did exactly that. Kronos, I'm telling you, Trump does not call the shots on who we bomb. I'm sorry if you believe that. You are so wrong. There's probably, in fact, there is a group that is putting together the orders, and Trump is the one that
fact,
he takes the fall for whatever goes on.
when his military cabinet, military advisors, and everything suggested it, when he agreed to it, they were all surprised because they didn't expect him to. Because Trump has actually been what he said he was. He's trying to be as anti-war as possible. Unfortunately,
Kronos, you're not listening, and I am not lying. You're not listening. There
Don't
is the people
model,
calling the
model,
shots are not Congress or anyone
do not
else.
fuel that fire, please.
No, when someone starts spouting off like a jackass.
Just don't fuel that fire, please. No, and this is true. Even if we take it like this, let's take a lighter side to it. All right, let's look at it like this. Trump is dangerous when it comes to military because of this, right?
Mhm.
He is the type of leader, like I said, he's smart enough because a lot of people call him a buffoon. He's not. Other people call him a genius. He's not. I think he's a genius when it comes to business, but he's not an overall genius as far as everything he does. But he's smart enough to know that the right person for the right job. And he trusts them to do that job. And when they screw up, he fires their ass and hires another person. This is Trump. And therefore, whereas you take Obama, for instance, and the fact that they're yelling and screaming about his bombing of Soleimani, right? Now, Obama did over 200 drone strikes in several situations, killing innocent civilians. No one said jack, right?
Mhm.
Now, but see, Obama didn't use the military to do those strikes. He used the CIA, NSA, things like this, right? Because he didn't like nor did he trust the military. Trump is very simple. He goes to his military leader, says, "Do your job," and then walks away from it, right? And in a way, that makes him far more dangerous than Obama because you don't want a military being let loose on you, particularly the American one, because they function in a militaristic way, of course, right? So yeah, even in the most subtlest way, Trump does not control who gets hit. He lets his military sort it out.
What are
So
we
even
talking
if
about
you look at
cults
it
here?
like
What
that,
are we doing?
And I would
How do you
say
do some of
even
those?
those decisions come from higher up than the military.
Yeah, I get your point. I was just trying to find a middle ground, is all.
Let's take it back to cults, shall we? Let's do that.
What, politics is riling up the chat?
Well,
Yeah.
politics, yeah,
Oh.
politics is a cult.
It is a cult.
And
Absolutely.
most
also,
certainly.
we're doing a video on cults.
there
But
you go.
yes,
Yeah, but
ready?
no,
You ready
no,
for it?
Booster,
Mike, absolutely.
Booster. Politics is 100% a cult. It's absolutely
Oh yeah,
cultism.
yeah.
It's one of the biggest
Mhm.
cults.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you can't not have this conversation and not talk politics. It's
Oh,
impossible.
my apologies. I was just trying to save the show.
It's
Well,
okay. Just know your
like Model
place,
was
boy.
talking about there, like
You can piss off.
like Model was talking about there with the pro wrestling match that is American politics.
Yeah.
He
Wrestling
didn't
is
he
definitely a
didn't come up
cult.
with that.
Mm.
I know Model is a pretty smart guy, but he didn't come up with that. In fact, I think the first person I ever heard say it was Ron Paul. He said something to that effect. Is it's basically like pro wrestling. They argue and argue and argue, and then they go and have a drink and dinner afterwards.
Mhm.
But he's exactly right. And the reason he's right, and this is what I want to talk about, the call I want to talk about, is because for about 300 years, slowly, in using the West's great wealth and power, a cult has taken over all political discourse in the Western world.
I would
That
say
cult,
400, but go ahead.
you could even say 400. That cult is the same cult we're battling when we battle SJWism, when we battle neoconservative imperialism. It's all the same thing. It all comes from the exact same place. I'm not necessarily talking about like Rothschilds and this and that, even though they're in there. I'm talking about the very cult of Western liberalism itself, the equality cult. These people genuinely believe that when it says all men are created equal, that is an absolute statement of fact. When it was never intended to be a statement of fact. One, it was a poetic use of prose intended to unify a country, and two, what they mean is equal under the law. They do not mean equal in ability and equal in measure.
Right.
And we know this because they were slave owners, for crying
Yes.
out loud.
But they
So there's
also
no way they believed everybody was equal.
no, true, but they were also referencing the equal opportunity.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were when we take what we have now, and this is what Karl Marx. This is why Marxism is derived from liberalism, and the reason why that happened is because Karl Marx just took its ideas to an extreme. Now that extreme is obviously lunacy, but he did that. And what that means is where everybody's, if we level the playing field and everybody's equal, what does that look like? That was the basic idea. That's where you come in with your Marxism and you get and seize the means of production. So no one person is above others because no one person can own anything because blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well,
We're still
Karl
doing
Mar-
the same battle from both sides of the aisle. The Republicans and the Democrats have the exact same core ideology of Marxism. Well, at least the establishments do. I don't think the individual members do. But the establishment in Washington, absolutely, they're almost all Marxists, except for a few exceptions that have come in with Trump, and a few exceptions that are like more libertarian leaning on both sides, left and right.
Mhm.
And that's why they always agree. That's why when there's anything that would go outside of their specific political dogma, they always agree every time with ridiculous amounts of agreement, like 80% in the House and in the Senate.
Sure.
Constantly it happens. And the reason that happens is because they have the same core ideology. So as long as that's not threatened, which is a liberal Marxist ideology, which is, I call it the cult of egalitarianism or the equality cult, where their God is literally this idea that everybody is equal, and their prophet, whether they want to admit it or not, was either Marx or Smith, one or the other, depending on which side you come at it from. These people are all basically the same thing. They all want to be parasites on the commons built by the people of the country. You know, when it says we and it says the people capitalized, the people are the country. That's who the country is. That's who's supposed to have the power. Unfortunately, they didn't put in the Constitution, probably because they couldn't have possibly seen Marxism coming, the proper protections to protect the commons that are the Constitution, to protect what the people were creating, which was a free society for the people. And because of this, it was corrupted largely through slow Marxist indoctrination and Marxist weaseling into both sides of the political argument. And now we have right-wing communists, which are we call them rhinos. They're Trotskyists. They're neocons. They're
They
the
are.
imperialists who have ran the Republican Party for 40 years, 50 years even probably. And then you have obviously your SJW type far lefties who have taken over. Everybody in the middle, the more normal people who make up the two parties, everybody's confused. Why can we not get out of war? Why, when we put a president in there specifically for the purpose to get us out of these overseas wars, it doesn't happen? And in fact, under Obama, got worse.
Oh,
Why?
much worse.
Why does that keep happening?
Yeah.
Because the people who really pull the strings want the war, because they're
True.
communists. They want
Well-
to control everything.
Isn't it
Much like rainbow-colored hair and problem glasses, whenever I see the word ism tagged to something, I'm wary of it.
Yeah.
Because ism is a sign of cult-like naming convention of things. Ism gives a feeling of belonging.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it
Absolutely.
interesting that Trump is the people's president? I thought
Yes.
that was very interesting. But just for those of you who don't really know Karl Marx, I'm going to give you a very, very spooky revelation. Are you ready? Are you ready?
He was a dickhead.
No, well, he was. But Karl Marx basically is the 19th century version of Bernie Sanders. And you want to check this out. Let me show you how spooky it is. Bernie Sanders spent most of his life living on other people's couches. So did Karl Marx. They both have crazy hair. Connections. That's all I wanted to say. I'm done.
Well, I'm sold. Reincarnation.
Yeah.
Proven.
Oh boy. But it's just fascinating that we've been under the grip. We're talking about cults, and this is a completely atheistic cult for the most part. They're not spiritualists. There's Christians and stuff in it, but
Yeah.
largely the defining core philosophy that both of these sides that control basically the world, because they control America for sure, have is the same thing. And it's the same different takes on the same idea of equality being some like almost spiritual thing. And it's not even in Christianity, is it? I know Christians think it is because they've been lied to, but the Bible is absolutely not egalitarian. God is not egalitarian. If that was the case, everybody would go to heaven if everybody was equal, but we're not. And some of it is because you're born that way, some of it because you've done things to make you that way. But the reality of it is these people took over, and everywhere they've taken over, they've destroyed, mind you, including France. In post-revolutionary France, they completely destroyed it, and Napoleon actually was a good force for most of the time for that country until he wasn't. These things continuously happen because people chase the same false doctrine of equality. It's happened all throughout Western history. We start thinking everybody's equal, and things go to crap because turns out everybody's not. Some people are in pretty much every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, better than other people. Now, that doesn't mean that they should necessarily rule, but we have to at least have that acknowledgement that I'm not as good as this guy over here for reasons that might not even be in my control. It's wicked, in my opinion.
It is evil.
People who enforce this stuff on others.
And I think more and more people are noticing and realizing how evil that is. Although the chat has some very interesting comedic relief, if I might interject. Bullet says, Richard Marx wants me to hold on to the night. Indeed. Yeah. This sounds like cult talk to me. Well, we're talking about cults. I hope Trump hits the high spots and drops the elbow from the top of the ladder because Vincent McMahon is a cult. Absolutely. Inkspots says, anything you are loyal to has the potential to become a cult. Yep. How far does your loyalty go? Very good. Now, Ink, you're supposed to be in here making inappropriate, degenerate comments. You're not supposed to be making sense. Stop it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Coming from him. No, that's got to be a cult sign. Yeah. That's doomsday prophecy, I think.
Right. Well, I Jordan's in here says he knows a fantastic cult. It's called the Cult of Raven. That the Pope Raven is amongst us. Is there
bad leader though?
Bad leader.
Generally a bad leader.
Terrible leader. Doesn't even let me in the Discord. What's up with that?
Yeah. But WWE is definitely a cult. What?
We found a malevolent cult, the Cult of Raven. They won't let the very charismatic and unbelievably popular Booster Boy in the cult because he'll take out the leader. We found one. There it is. Live
we got it. Yep.
Yes.
We figured it out.
And of course, we always have to ask the question: who really is Pope Raven? I mean, really. But anyway, guys, we have definitely talked about cults a lot. We covered mainly talk about religious cults, and we got in the cult personality at the end, which is why I kind of left it to the end because I knew it was going to go.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I knew we were going to go political because it's inevitable. You know, whether you agree 100% with everything that was said here or not, I will say this: in modern politic, there's a lot of evil happening, a lot of it, and there's no way you can argue against anyone who says there is, because it is evil what's happening. And SJWism, or egalitarianism, or progressivism, or regressivism, whatever you want to call it, it is evil. It is harmful. It is violent. And this is just the reality of it. Whether you like the current regime or not, I don't think matters, because in a way I do agree with Thundero. The political ideals that want to be put forward are put forward, and I know a lot of times these kind of conversations lead us to the concept of the Illuminati. But keep in mind that although that the fantastical ideas of the Illuminati and all the interesting visions and comic book stories that can come out of them, understand that money is the most powerful motivator that exists. And a lot of these decisions and things that take place in the world, they're coming out of the economic side of things, not some mysterious Illuminati, right? The
Well, look at
Bilderberg
our
group is far more dangerous.
look at our fiat currency. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
talk about something cult-like. Just look at our money.
that's
It's
true.
very culty.
Well, we basically agree that these pieces of paper have value when they have no value behind them whatsoever. Of course, you know bills. The reason why we call them bills is because it's coming out of a piece of paper given from a bank, so you could carry large amounts of money from one place to another, right? And of course, over time, it became just more convenient for people to have more paper in their pocket than weighty coins. But at that time, that piece of paper was being represented by actual mineral wealth sitting in a bank somewhere. These days, fiat currency, there is no gold, there's no value whatsoever. It's purely paper. And when you hear them talking about printing new paper, or they're talking about having to do some new taxes to raise money, it's all nonsense. They could easily just say, well, none of this matters because there's no value anyway, and let's just agree, just call it credits instead of money, right? But they won't do that because they want to keep you in a state of debt, right? And that's just the reality of it. And then once again, it's another type of evil, and it is cultic behavior as well. Yeah, interesting.
Japan is one of the last remaining holdouts in Western society that hasn't gone to that predatory central banking.
Yeah,
They have some of it because they're trading on the world stage, but as
Yeah.
far as in general, they've not gone anywhere near what the Bank of London and the Federal Reserve
Oh
and
no.
things like that.
Well, but there's a reason for that though, and there are many other little countries that tried to resist and failed simply because they were too small and weak. Japan is neither. But the reason why Japan is like this is because they are homogenous. They are Japanese. You got to understand, less than 2% of this population is not born in Japan, right? And because of the homogeny of Japan, the political leaders, who are no better than any other political leaders, they're all a bunch of bastards, right? They are Japan first simply because of the homogeny of the country, and this benefits Japan in many ways. Actually, oddly, it's not there's no philanthropic or some kind of great thought from the Japanese leadership. They're just as much a bunch of bastards as any other. But it's just because of the homogeny here, it creates that kind of
Well,
situation.
no, it's smart. It's self-preservation of
It
a
is.
nation and a people.
That's right.
And that's another thing the cult is hitting us with, is that we shouldn't, if we do that, we're evil. We're nationalists. We're ethno-state.
Yeah, it's
You
weird
know,
that isn't it weird that the word nationalist is a bad thing now? How's that happen?
that's Orwellian in changing the definitions of the words. And that's going on all the time. Racism doesn't mean what it used to mean. None of these words mean what they originally meant.
Well,
They've taken on a new
I
meaning.
hate Booster because he's the wrong color. That's still racism, isn't it?
Jesus.
Yeah,
God.
I hate Booster too.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that all of that you just talked about is the result of this cult of liberalism, of egalitarianism, equalitarian, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it's just the root cause of it is an extreme zealotry to the idea of all men being equal. It's liberal. It's basically just liberalism. It's spread throughout most of the world, or at least the civilized world, and it refuses, abjectly, completely intolerant of any ideology that comes up that might threaten it.
Yeah.
100, it will not be tolerated anywhere in the world that they have control over. Why
And
do
in
you
most cases, at the barrel of a gun.
Oh,
They will
why do
kill
you
you
think
that is
if they
fair.
can.
they go
That is
after
fair.
Putin so hard when, for the most part, except for in his little sphere of influence, he's benign. He just wants to make money. That's what he cares about, is making himself in Russia wealthy. And that's all he cares
Yeah,
about, really.
it's another a bit of touch on homogeny, right? Russia.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
all these little these protesters and stuff out there with their supposedly spreading peace and love, don't think for a second they wouldn't drag you out of your house in the middle of the night and murder you if they could get in control.
Yeah,
Yes.
They absolutely would.
and besides, we're clearly not equal. I am both taller, handsomer, and larger peen-eyed than Booster.
we have not proven the last one, but we have yet
Uh,
to duel, sir.
Excuse
We
Say
have
me.
90
not have a sword fight, sir.
I hate to tell you this, but
Mind
uh,
satisfaction.
I
say
hate to tell you this.
98% of us fall into that, probably.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, Ezra. I hate to tell you this, but Ezra sleeps and tells, buddy. He's a chatter. Yeah. Sorry. But anyway, we've definitely come to the end of this, for damn sure. But anyway, so let me get the last words from everybody, and then we'll close it out today. But it was a fun conversation. I knew it would be. Yeah, cultism is an interesting topic for sure. But let's
Yeah.
start with Booster, and let's
Hey.
go ourselves right. Go ahead, Booster.
So, what exactly did we really learn today, right? What is it? That just about any kind of collection of people can potentially become a cult in one way or another,
Amen.
especially if there's a leader figure who just dictates everyone, tells you that the outside is bad, will not tolerate dissent, and for goodness sake, will not let you leave. And they will abuse you in any way, make demands of you, make you do this and that, and they will want your money, send super chats.
And they won't even send you your comic book.
Fair point. Fair
Mhm,
point.
mhm.
Well, thank you very much, Booster. Model?
I'll use my time to extend an olive branch to Kronos. You can call me stupid. You can say I'm wrong. You can disagree with me all day long. But if you call me a liar, you are saying that I am intentionally being deceptive and trying to mislead, and I will argue with you for that.
All right, rock on.
Don't become my hobby, because I'll make you miserable for 6 to 12 months.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I
Uh-oh.
disavow that.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now,
I
just
disavow
for
that
that,
very
just
much.
for that model, after I'm done with Thundera, you're going to have to get a namaste moment. You're in charge of
Okay.
that. All right. All right.
My
So
turn?
Thundera, closing word, sir.
All right. Unlike Model, who's really stupid and ignorant,
Yes.
I actually know what I'm talking about. Sorry, you walked me right into that.
Yeah,
Model.
he didn't
I'm
call you a
fine.
liar.
That doesn't bother me actually at all.
No, what I want to get across is people try and tell you that if you're not you don't believe in equality, you're racist or you hate other people. That's nonsense. There's nothing about me, besides maybe I might be a little bit smarter, that LeBron James is not better than me at. Physically, he is superior to me in every way. I'm sure. I can't imagine, unless he has a really small penis, I can't imagine he's not physically superior to me in every way. So it's not about a race thing. That's not. I don't want people to take that away from it. It's just about reality. And these people have denied reality for too long, and that's why you're seeing a lot of the problems you're seeing today with the things like he was talking about with the countries that are no longer homogenous or mostly homogenous. So the long and the short of it is, cults happen all over the world. They happen for all different reasons, and you can get sucked into one easier than you think. You're probably very close to in one, whether you know it or not. But that's all right, as long as you know who you are and keep yourself, away from doing something stupid. You'll be all right.
Well, there you go. That was very nice. And I don't know exactly what Thundera is talking about because I personally am a physical specimen. So, you know, but nevertheless, that is awesome. Great conversation, guys. Thank you for coming back. We had a lot of people in here. You guys really enjoy TFT, and so do we. So we're going to make a decision here. What we will do next week. We'll find some other interesting topic. So definitely keep coming back. Of course, this is the top of the week for us. Monday is our California show tomorrow, 9 p.m. Excuse me, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we get a normal week ahead of us, so it should be a lot of fun. But of course, that means we have come to our namaste moment. So love you, chat, and Model is going to enlighten us.
Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Oh,
Namaste.
namaste.
All right. Later, everybody.
Aloha.